Now let's look at the interest calculation problems on page 50. This should actually be page 58, number 2. And we'll just read through the problem, and this is just another conveyance where they give you the graph, so you know you're just going to have to plot out in different colors if it helps you what the different interests are. So let's start with, right, this is 58 for you. Okay, so Adam owns 100% of section 2, and we're just going to presume this is section 2. Now, the first thing I do whenever I have a problem like this is I go ahead and put my corner markers, and sometimes I even think about this being the United States just to make sure I'm oriented correctly. So this would be the northeast, that's going to be in New York. This is going to be the southeast, that's going to be Florida. This is going to be the northwest, that's going to be the state of Washington. And this is going to be the southwest, that's going to be California. That's just a little trick that I use. I don't know if that would be helpful to you or not, but just to give you an idea. And then the other thing I do is I always track which number conveyance it is. So for example, number 2, Adam sells the northeast, reserving 75% of the oil and gas. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a color, and Adam sells the northeast. So over here, I'm going to sell the whole northeast. So by the end of the problem, we'll know what Adams owns based on what is left in black, is the way I do it. So if you were taking the CPL or RPL exam, I would just recommend that you bring some colored pencils, and that way you could be sure what interest you would actually put on the map. That's a good idea for if you're working in the field as well. A lot of landmen carry colored pencils with them. Okay, so this is problem number 1, or I'm sorry, number 2. And note that it says that Adam's reserving a 75% royalty interest. So I want to be able to show on my map that even though Adam sold this property, he did reserve 75% of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take in black, since that's the color that's going to designate what ownership is. I'm going to write 75% in here. That's going to show me that he sold it, but he retained 75%. Then number 3 says that Adam sells the northwest of the northwest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break my northwest quarter into quarters, and that will help orient me to, remember you read these backwards, so the northwest quarter is going to be here, and the northwest of the northwest is going to be up here. And he doesn't reserve anything in this, so I don't have to write anything on top of it about what his mineral interest reserved is. But I am going to put the number 3 here just because that helps me keep track of where I am. And then we're going to go to number 4. Adam sells the southeast of the southeast. So here's the southeast, and I'm going to divide that into quadrants, into 4s. So I'll know that the southeast of the southeast is going to be here. So then we have to ask, did he reserve anything in here? On question number 3, I'm sorry, number 4. And no, he doesn't. So this whole southeast is sold. Number 5 is Adam sells the west half of the southeast. So here's the west half of the southeast, but now he's reserving a 5% royalty. So if he's reserving a 5% royalty, that means he's not keeping any mineral interest. He has no mineral interest in here, but he did retain a 5% royalty. So I'm going to go ahead and color that in. Let's see which number 5. Adam sells the west half of the southeast. I'm going to color that in. And I'm just going to make a note to the side that he owns a royalty interest in here. Serving 5% royalty. Okay, so that's not going to go on the lease form because he doesn't own any minerals in that. But it is going to go when we calculate net revenue interest because he does own an interest even though it may not be a mineral interest. So we're going to put 5% royalty to the side. And that's going to be number 5. Okay, then number 6 is Adam sells the north half of the southwest. So here we've got the southwest. We don't even have any markers on it. Now he's going to sell the north half. So I'm just going to divide this in half. Oh, let me get a different color. I'm just going to divide that in half. The north half and the south half. So the north half, Adam is conveying. Okay, now is Adam retaining any of the minerals here, or is he selling all the minerals? Go back to our problem on number 6. He's reserving 25% of the minerals, not royalty, minerals. So in that case, we're going to denote on here that even though he sold it, he's retaining 25% of the minerals. And that'll be in black, and that'll be a clue to us that he still owns an interest. Now the question reads, you were to buy Adam leasing from Adam. You were to buy Adam lease from Adam for $10 an acre and Adam 1/8 royalty. It would have been nice if the person who wrote this problem spoke English, but since they didn't, no, I'm just kidding. They did. This is just not the most artfully worded question, but you understand what they're getting at. And what they're saying is we're buying this lease from Adam. All right, and we've gone through the chain of title, and this has been all the conveyances that he's conveyed out. And so now we want to pay $10 an acre for a bonus payment, and the royalty on the lease is 1/8 or a 0.125. This is going to be for $10 an acre. And then it says assume 640 acre spacing. And that's important because when you go to calculate the interest, what you want to put is the net acres divided by the unit acre. So if it's spaced, that is a 640 acre unit spacing. So that 640 tells us what is going to go on the bottom of this calculation, and that's going to be 640 acres. So that's why that information is relevant in there. And then you typically multiply that times the royalty interest, which in this case would be a 0.125. So let's now answer the questions that are provided on page 58. And now we've got our map set up, and we could double check this if we wanted to, but I'm pretty sure we've got it set up correctly. I didn't denote that this was 25%. What was number 6? It's just to keep it straight for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rely on my map alone. I'm not going to look back at the wording because I feel like I've got my map correctly. And then when I go and answer my questions, I'm just going to go by what the map says. So the first thing it says is complete the following. What is the lease description? So what lease description are we going to put in our oil and gas lease? So the first thing I would do is I would go in the order, the sequence of orders that the problem was given. So this first quarter here is the northeast quarter. Okay. And we know that that's 160 acres. But we also know that they only own a 75% mineral interest. Then let's go to number 3. Number 3, we've got black showing the east half of the northwest. This is the east half, so I'll write that down. East half of the northwest. And we also have this little area here, which is the southwest of the northwest. All right, so the acreage then for the east half of the northwest, well, if this is 160 acres, that's going to be half of that, so that's going to be 80 acres. And they didn't reserve anything, so we don't have to multiply it by anything. And then the other is the southwest of the northwest, which is 40 acres. Okay. Now I'm going to go to over here, number 4. Number 4, I can see that all I have is black showing here. And so that is going to be I'm going to start with the southeast, because that's what quadrant it's in. And then it's going to be the northeast of the southeast. And that's going to be 40 acres. Then next I'm going to go to, I'm not going to put anything about this royalty interest because that's not going to go in the lease because this A does not own any minerals in this west half of the southeast. So now I'm going to go to number 6, where really they own the whole southwest quarter, but half of it they only own 25%. So we're going to go this 160, I'm sorry, this is 80 acres. So 80 acres is going to be the north half of the southwest. And that's going to be 80 acres. And that's going to be multiplied by a 0.25 because they only have a 25% interest. But the south half of the southwest is owned outright. So that's going to be 80 acres outright. Okay, so let's then calculate. So that's going to be what our lease description is. All right, northeast quarter, comma, east half northwest, comma, southwest northwest, comma, northeast of the southeast, comma, north half of the southwest, comma, and south half of the southwest, comma. Every time you see a comma, that's a different property description. Okay, so then let's calculate up what this is going to be. And now this is going to be our gross acres because we're not going to multiply it by the percent of ownership that the person owns yet. So let's get out our calculator. And this is going to be 160 plus 80 plus 40 plus 40 plus 80 plus 80. So our gross acres is going to be this 480. Okay, now let's calculate what the net interest is, and what we're doing then is we're going to apply these designations. We're going to apply these percentage interest. So 160 times 0.75 instead of being 160 acres, that's going to be 120 acres. So this here is our gross, and this is going to be our net. All right. East half of the northwest, we didn't reserve any mineral ownership, so that's going to be a straight 80 for the net. Southwest of the northwest, again, we didn't reserve any minerals there, so that's going to be straight 40. Northeast of the southeast, again, no reservation, so that's going to be 40. Now we get to the north half of the southwest, which is going to be 80 times this 25%. So we've got 80 acres, but we only own a 25% interest. So our interest is not going to be 80, it's going to be 20. We only own 20 net acres. And then 80, we don't have to multiply any further. We don't have to reduce it. So that means our net acres is going to be 120 plus, 120, again, 120 plus 80 plus 40 plus another 40 plus 20, this is the one that's reduced, plus 80. So that means our net acres is going to be 380 net acres. So let's write that there. 380 net acres. So if we're filling this out on the exam, gross acres owned by A is going to be this 480. And the net mineral acres owned by A is going to be 380. All you've done is multiply that by the percentage of ownership. Now, the bonus paid to A, we're going to pay a bonus of, what did they say, $100 an acre? $100 an acre, and we're going to pay them based on not the gross, but on the net. So if we're going to say 380 times 100, that number is going to be $3,800. That is the bonus they would get paid if the bonus was $100 an acre. Now, what is the rental that's due? It's going to be $1 an acre. Again, we're going to use the net acres, so that the rental is going to be $380. That's due after 1 year, and every year thereafter that you don't drill. So the rental payment is going to be $380. Now, the acres entered on the lease form is going to be the gross acres. Now, why is that? That's because there is a clause in the oil and gas lease that allows us to reduce the ownership interest or reduce the rental amount based on the actual ownership. That's called the proportionate reduction clause. And so if we have that clause, we don't really need to calculate out the net acres. And sometimes when we're doing this really quickly, we're not positive. We'd really like to go back and figure out where they own 75% and where they own 25%. We've done the best we could, but we'd really rather wait for an attorney to come along and tell us what the net acres are. So for the lease itself, we're going to put 480 acres. And that's because we know we have that proportionate reduction clause in the lease that allows us to do that. The rental amount entered on the lease form is going to be the same thing, $480. Even though we know the actual rental payment is going to be on the net, what we can put in the lease form is $480. Now, let's calculate the net revenue owned by Adam in Section 1. So what I usually do is I could go back through here and go 120 times 1/8, 80 times 1/8, 40, or let me say 120 over 640 times 1/8, 80 over 640 times 1/8, 40 over 640 times 1/8. Or I can just do, the way I do it is I take the net amount, that's 380, divided by 640. Remember they told us this was 640 acre spacing. And I'm going to multiply that by the rental amount. They told us it was 1/8, and we know that is a 0.125 decimal interest. So that means this person's net revenue interest is going to be 380, the net acres, divided by 640, the total acres in the unit, times their royalty payment, excuse me, of 0.125. And that means their interest is going to be 0.074-21875. 0.074-21875. That's correct. Okay. Now, is that the end of the inquiry? Well, no, because remember, it's also important when we figure what royalty interest they own. So here they own a 5% royalty interest. So the way we're going to calculate that is we know that half of the southeast quarter is going to be 80 acres. So we're going to say 80 acres divided by the unit acres, which is 640, times the percent of royalty here, which is 5%, or 0.05. Okay, so let's look at what that calculation would be. And it's 80 acres divided by total unit acres times the actual royalty interest owned, which is a 0.05. So that interest is an additional 0.0066 625 interest that A owns. I'll just put zeros here. That A owns. So then if I add these up together, I've got 5, 7, 8, 6, 4, 10. Here the 1 is 8. And my answer is a 0.08046875. And so that is what A's net revenue interest would be. We take the interest that they own in mineral ownership plus the interest that they own in royalty only, and that's going to give us A's net revenue interest. Now let's look at number 3.